Combat Arms is one of the most ambitious and largest free-to-play FPS titles that have ever been released, with a massive audience, a huge community that interacts with each other constantly, forums with thousands of members, millions of posts, and gameplay that was fun and intuitive and interesting. But that was back in 2008. In 2010 and 2012. But come 2015 and 2016 and 2017, Combat Arms just wasn't the same. It's not the same game that it used to be back when I was a kid, when I was playing it with my dad. My dad plays this game every single day still, and he's the one that introduced me to this game. And I can attest to the fact that this game is nothing like it used to be. Nexon has milked it for money. They've pushed it to its absolute limits, and they've borderline killed it off from the game it used to be and have turned it into a shell of something that just isn't fun and something that just doesn't feel like Combat Arms. A game that isn't interesting, a game that has a bland gameplay style like a CSGO clone on the Steam Early Access page. Combat Arms used to be something great, something that everybody wanted to play, back with an old UI that felt familiar, a HUD that was easy to navigate, gameplay that felt fun and different. There were tons of modes for people to play in, different communities among all these different modes. The quarantine community, the fire team community, clans all across the board with infamous members like I'm Hilarious, Grateful Dead, and YouTube communities with members like Royko, UCD, Arctic Dropshot, big names that brought Combat Arms to the place that it is today. And some of the biggest members of the Combat Arms community have flocked away from the game they once loved. And Combat Arms filled that niche for a free-to-play FPS game that didn't feel like just some boring pay-to-win game that had no fun or exciting gameplay. Now, in 2016, Combat Arms announced that they were trying to push a new form, a new era for the game, called Combat Arms Reloaded, a graphics engine overhaul, a complete overhaul to the entire game that would change the way it's played, change the way it's perceived. It would be a completely new game. But that's not what the community wanted. The community wanted balance. The community wanted new and intuitive gameplay mechanics that would make the game feel alive, but make it feel like Combat Arms. Nobody asked for a new graphics engine or a new HUD or UI. People want balance. They don't want the game to be milked for Nexon cash, for Nexon to make tons of money off of a game that isn't what people want to play. Combat Arms was a game for everybody, a game that felt interesting and fun, a game that I'm sure many people that I know and many people that you might know would come back to if it was the same game they played in 2008, the same game they played in 2010, and the same game that they played in 2013, in 2012, in 2011, any year before Nexon decided that it was time to milk all of the money out of it that they could and make sure that it was just a game that didn't feel like Combat Arms, a game that wasn't fun to play, it was easy to make money off of. In 2016, Combat Arms Reloaded became a reality. This was also around the time that Combat Arms North America had shut down its service for Combat Arms entirely, giving it over to Combat Arms Europe, making it a global game. Americans playing with Germans, British playing with Canadian. Everybody was able to play Combat Arms with everybody. There was no split community anymore. And this seemed really great for the game. And this was something that I was excited for, and something that a lot of people were excited for. But it wasn't exactly what was right for the game. After that, Combat Arms saw a great decline, and this really pushed the game over its theoretical edge that pushed it into its own grave. Combat Arms Reloaded came around the corner with new graphics, a new interface that just didn't feel right to the user, a new HUD that really felt like somebody made it in MS Paint with a PNG and slapped it over the game, and weapon balances that weren't weapon balances. They were just releasing the new weapons for in-game currency without tweaking them. Now, Combat Arms Reloaded, it's not a game that feels like Combat Arms. It's an entirely new game with Combat Arms ghosted behind it. Combat Arms Reloaded is not Combat Arms. It's Combat Arms Reloaded. Now that sounds dumb to say, and that sounds really obvious, but it is. It's a different game, and it's not Combat Arms. In 2017, which is now, Nexon announced that they were giving the game up with a buyout to Valofe Global. Now, Valofe bought out Combat Arms, a game that's dying and already dead. This company is notorious for killing the games it buys, turning them into cash cows and profiting off of them until nobody's playing them anymore. Now, Nexon selling off Combat Arms to Valofe might be good for their numbers, but it's not good for the player base. Combat Arms is close to its death, and I urge you all to make a stand to Valofe Global. Let them know that the game you loved in 2008, in 2010, in 2012, this is not the game they just bought. And if they want to keep this game alive and keep making money off of it rather than make a quick buck and throw it in the trash, they need to bring the game back to the former glory that it once had. The fun gameplay, the balanced weapons, no overpowered weapons like the Max's R870, the Orthus, the Legion. None of these weapons need to exist in the game. Balance the specialists. Make game modes that are fun for the players. And don't push unnecessary modes like competitive play to emulate Counter-Strike's player base and Counter-Strike's gameplay when that's not the game Combat Arms is. Combat Arms once was an amazing game with a thriving player base, an active community, and wonderful gameplay that enticed new players and old alike. But that's not the game Combat Arms is today. Combat Arms is just a shell of its once glorious form. The game isn't the way it used to be, and it might not ever be that way again. It needs to make a change. It needs to release something like UCD said in his Combat Arms is Dying video, Combat Arms Classic. Something a player could purchase to go back and play the Combat Arms they played in their childhood. The Combat Arms that had the old brown military UI, one that felt interesting, the gameplay that felt fun, the maps that didn't feel overplayed and overpushed to the community, and weaponry that you could purchase with your hard-earned cash without it being overpowered to all of the other players in your game. Combat Arms in 2008 was one of the most fun experiences I have ever had in a free-to-play first-person shooter game, or really any FPS game I have ever played. No game has ever brought me the same joy that Combat Arms has and had for many years. For my family, for me, and for my friends, everybody that has played it. Combat Arms just isn't the game it used to be, and it's trying to be something that it's not. Games like Counter-Strike or Squad, Arma, any of these games, they aren't the same market as Combat Arms. Sure, they're FPS games, but this isn't what the players want. Combat Arms has an active and loyal community and fan base that didn't ask for a Counter-Strike clone. Pushing matchmaking and competitive play in a game that was meant for quick rounds and fun with your friends, that's just not Combat Arms. Custom lobbies are completely gone unless you dig for them. And that's something that brought a community to Combat Arms. The custom lobbies where you could sit with your friends or the well-known members of the community and you could hang out and talk. Play the game socially and not play it for a competitive thrive. Combat Arms isn't a competitive game. That's not its main focus. Competitive play is not Combat Arms. Combat Arms is fun and intuitive and exciting with a thriving community that it once had that now just seems like a ghost town. So Valofe, when you start up your services in November of 2017 and you bring in the community of what's left of Combat Arms, remember that if you want this game to survive, if you want to keep making money off of it, which we know you all do, if you want to keep this game in your pocket and keep a community that enjoys it and people that respect your game and respect you as developers and publishers, you need to make a change. Bring back Combat Arms of 2010 or 2011, 2012, 2013, but don't just buy out Combat Arms Reloaded in the state that it's in. A broken, unbalanced, terribly performing, dead game. This isn't going to make you money. This isn't going to bring you players. This isn't good. and this isn't what you want. If you look at the community, there's an outreach to bring back the old Comet Arms that once was, but the only way we can do that is if we have our new developers and if we have our new publisher bring that game back to us. And if you do that, this could be, again, one of the most successful, fun, and intuitive games that is out on the market today.